Welcome, everyone, to Nopes and Opes. We're back. I got Lance and I got Highland.
Yep.
We're here together again. This is our first recording of the weekend. And so, I'm excited to kind of catch up and do a little kind of check in to start. How are you doing, Highland?
Oh man. I'm hoping. Well, the recording in Peoria is interesting because the school year has now started for me. So I left South St. Paul at about 3:23 last night, and got here at about 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Hereabouts, and yeah, it's a way different dynamic once the school has started. And granted, there's always a little bit of stress at the beginning of the year and everything.
No.
So I'm wondering how I will perform today.
Yeah.
Let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I'll be interested to see my own check-in. Like what's the actual performance like?
Yeah.
How you doing?
Well, I mean, we kind of hinted on it before the podcast we actually started, but I moved back to Peoria, as we all know. Got a job, paid off my credit card debt. So woo!
Wow, congratulations!
Huge accomplishment.
Yeah,
for
that's
me.
huge.
Now, my credit card debt wasn't enormous, but that's the thing about credit card debt is it can start really small and then it'll slowly just build with interest and whatnot. So, but that's knocked out of the park. So I achieved that goal. That's a win.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But in doing so, right, I was working at a car dealership, right? So that's what I did when I first got here to Peoria. I was like, I need a job. I need something that can pay me relatively well and quickly. And that's kind of the best opportunity that I found. And so I worked there and I did 3 months there, and I kind of came to the end and I was like, this is not where I need to be. This is not the right fit. So I decided to leave after my 3 months. I paid off my credit card bills. So I've had some time. And what's funny is when I was working at the car dealership, I did not like the job, but mentally I was doing much better. I was much happier, much less stressed. And then now that I've had like a 2-week break, and I did find some work, but in this 2 weeks of like not having anything to do, my mental health has declined significantly. And not in a sense where like I'm trying to cause concern, but I'd like to talk about it just because now I'm so much more aware of when something is impacting me in a really negative way versus in the past where I couldn't really put my finger on it. I was like, man, I really feel down or I feel depressed, and I couldn't ever figure out what the actual thing was. And now I kind of have the vision of like, oh, I can see, like, the blindfold's off, baby. I can see what's going on behind closed doors.
Well, and I always feel weird asking this question because I think one of the answers is going to be from the book, and I don't want to seem like, oh, Highland, you're just trying to do that.
A setup.
But like seriously though, because I feel like I'm also more aware, but I don't know if I can actually pinpoint where it came from. But like, where and like how did your awareness come from? Do you have any ideas?
So yeah, absolutely. And it's not only from the book and the conversations we've had. I've also been doing a lot of research in one of our episodes that we talked about recently, which has not been released yet, but it will be released soon. We talk about dementia, and we talk about my grandmother, right?
Yeah.
And both my grandma and grandpa have dementia. And so that episode, it's really emotional, and it's a beautiful episode.
It's a great episode.
I'm very happy with it. But after that episode, I was like, I should really start doing some research into dementia. And so I started listening to a lot of podcasts and doing my own research into kind of how to live have a healthier lifestyle for your brain, specifically the brain.
Yeah.
Fat, healthy brain, which I know you're all about. Right?
I love it. Yeah.
And in doing so, there's this beautiful podcast, and there's this. I should have written down the name of the actual doctor who talks about it, but I'll put a quote at the end or in the description.
Suzuki?
Yes, it was her. Yeah. And she was on Diary of a CEO, which is a beautiful podcast.
Yeah.
And she was talking about the 3 biggest things that really deteriorate the brain. One is exercise. Exercise is great to help the brain.
Deteriorate.
Yeah.
The things that help.
Yeah. If you don't exercise, it deteriorates.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
exercise cannot be if anybody listens to this
Yeah.
podcast, if anybody like actually pays attention, please, please, please
Yeah.
go out and take a walk. Like just
It's specifically
do
getting your
something.
heart rate up. It doesn't mean you have to be, do an
Well,
Olympic lift or a sprint. It's, if you are not someone that's really physically active, something as simple as taking a walk can help your
but
brain.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be about like raising the heart rate and going extreme.
Yeah.
Like just physically getting out and taking a walk in like outside in nature, even just a little bit elevated, whatever. It can be a very casual walk, but the benefits are significant.
Yeah. And she
It's
was talking about how just like actually looking at the brain, the best antidepressant is physical exercise.
by far,
So when I
by
heard
far.
that from an actual doctor, not just, my brother that listened to a podcast, I was like, okay,
Well,
I'm paying attention to that.
she's also one of the top
Yeah.
neurologists in the
Yeah.
world.
Oh,
And
she's
like
fantastic.
she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah. So that's one thing. Another one that I never really realized was being in solidarity, like not having any social interactions really deteriorates your brain.
Well, isolation is one of the
Isolation,
like
yeah.
um we're just beginning to understand the negative effects of isolation, especially I think COVID brought this into the kind of the
No.
forefront, but also the effects of like in American society, uh the family dynamics and the family focus are
No.
so different than many places around the world. But as we get older, a lot of times we're put into homes, we're kind of shut off from our normal friend groups. We're
No.
not as mobile, we're not as community focused, and the detrimental effects psychologically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally are astronomical. I mean, and we're beginning to see like we started off studying the effects on like the geriatric population, but we're seeing the exact same kind of symptoms and kind of effects in the youth, like the very very young,
No.
and it's like whoa, what the heck's happening? Like the advent of COVID really decimated a lot of
Yeah.
things, but also social media and being like cut off from actual like face to face interactions and yeah. So isolation, uh, yeah. I just want to stress, like just stress. Like actually,
In bold.
please exercise and please like I think in because I watched that same podcast, but
Yeah.
she says like healthy relationships, like
Yeah.
really stressing healthy relationships because there are a lot of relationships that are not healthy for us and
Absolutely.
that are really quite detrimental. But yeah, exercise and having healthy, robust, beneficial relationships cannot be overstressed,
Yeah.
over kind of emphasized.
So in listening and watching that podcast, I heard those two specific things, right?
Mm,
Isolation and not exercising. And I was like, okay. So those are two really important things just for the brain overall to be healthy.
yeah,
If your brain isn't healthy, you're not going to be thinking positively. You're not going to be able to make decisions in a correct manner.
yeah.
And a big part of my life after, moving back is now I'm kind of like, I'm starting over essentially, right?
Mm,
I'm figuring out what the rest of my life is going to be.
mm,
And so I was like, I need to have my brain in the right capacity to do so.
yeah, absolutely.
And so when reflecting on all the times that I have been in a positive mindset, not in a negative mindset,
Mm,
the things that all correlate is I'm social. I have people that I'm talking to daily,
mm,
not just my family, like strangers, people I work with, right?
yeah,
And I'm exercising.
yeah,
I'm physically doing something every day.
yeah,
And so being able to see that and also then reflecting back on my time in Chicago, which was extremely depressing time for myself. I
not
was like,
Chicago, Minneapolis.
both
Oh,
Chicago
oh,
and Minneapolis
oh. I'm sorry.
were
Okay.
both very bad, right?
Oh, okay.
But Chicago was kind of the start of it because in
Oh,
Chicago
okay.
I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I just don't feel good, and that's when I started to go to therapy. I got on anti-anxiety medication. I got
Okay.
on antidepressants because I didn't know what the hell was going on. And, there's deeper rooted problems there. But from a broad standpoint, it was I didn't socialize with anyone. right? It was COVID. All I had was my, girlfriend at the time, so I only talked to her,
Yeah.
but then she would try to have friends, and then I'd be alone, and I had Lance, but, Lance doesn't talk back. And so now, this 2-week span that I've had, I haven't really been able to talk with friends because they've all been kinda busy. Like, one of my friends kinda has a girlfriend right now, so he's kind of focused on that, and I'm like, "That's fine,
Yeah.
do your thing." And, I started exercising a little bit less.
Yeah.
And so yesterday was actually like a soup like I woke up and I just was super low. And I've been journaling a lot just because it helps me kind of get the thoughts out and kind of be able to look back and be like, okay, what's the difference between 2 weeks ago when I'm in a good mindset
Mm.
and what I'm talking about versus today? And specifically just not having things to work towards and have that social interaction really negatively affects me
Mm.
if I don't have it. And in the past, I always was like, I don't need that. Like, I'm more of an introvert. And it's like, even if you are an introvert, like, I do think that you need social interaction in some capacity, right?
Well, there's a bunch of thoughts going through my head right now, and I hope I don't. I hope I get to express them because sometimes I just forget what I like. I focus on one thing and then I forget all the other things. But
Yeah.
and this is gonna sound kind of weird too, but COVID was really great for me, actually, in a way. I mean, it was difficult like everybody else, but in a way, it really showed me because I also think like I explain myself as severely introverted,
Yeah.
right? Like I use that term all the time, and in a way, I am right. Like I'm more than happy to be alone a lot, and
Yeah.
I get a lot of benefit from that. But COVID really reinforced like, Island, you need your friends. Like
Yeah.
you need interaction, and that was a huge lesson to me. And it was kind of like beat into my head. Like I didn't have a choice. Like I was like, nope. Like let's not mess around. Let's
Yeah.
not like your friends are super valuable. Your interactions with them, like you don't need them all the time, but you absolutely need them. They are absolutely necessary, and you are not okay when you don't have them.
Yeah.
And then another thing too is like this summer has just been extremely busy for me and like kind of outside the norm for me. Like I usually have a lot of downtime and just I kind of relish in it and kind of reset myself. And
Yeah.
but one of the things that I like to do for relaxation is like to play tennis, right? And this summer there's been kind of extended periods where I haven't had the chance to
Yeah.
play for 3 or 4 days in a
Mhm.
row, and even within that short amount of time, like I find myself like almost like addicted, like just kind of sitting in my house,
Yeah.
like when are they going to send a message so we get to go play tennis? Like it's like I'm just
Yeah.
sitting there waiting, and so that's also been kind of a revelation to me. Like, dang, like you. And for me, tennis is exercise, but it's also social.
Yeah.
It's a chance to just get out and like, yeah, like I really like hanging out with my friends in that context. And then the last thing that's kind of coming to my mind is I'm working with. Well, I'm not working with. There's a young girl that's playing tennis at a really really high level, but we're talking about the mental aspects.
Yeah.
And one of the things that like I'm trying to figure out how to get her to realize is if you don't focus your brain will kind of focus itself.
Mhm.
And it's pre programmed from the very earliest stages to kind of look for dangers and look for threats and look for things that can harm us.
Yeah.
But that takes us in a very negative spiral.
Yeah.
That takes us like we're focusing on we're our brain is purposely trying to
Yeah.
find the negatives in life. And if we don't like take control and like kind of take over and be like, no,
Yeah.
let's focus on this, whatever. It will purposefully go to the negative because it's just meant for survival.
Yeah.
And so like it's really, really important to be very conscious of what thoughts you're putting into your brain, what thoughts you're allowing your brain to have, where your brain is naturally going and kind of redirecting it when it goes to
Yeah.
those negative places. And that's that's an incredibly easy thing to say, so hard to
Oh,
do.
yeah, no. So, part of yesterday when I was kind of in my low and when I was writing, when I was kind of journaling is so I've stopped smoking weed
Oh,
altogether and social media, right?
oh,
So for the past like 2-3 weeks now,
oh, wow.
so which has been that's another episode we're gonna get into.
Okay.
We if we want to talk about it more here, we can. But because in doing the research on the brain, I was like, okay, smoking is not good for your brain.
Uh,
In no way.
well, can I just do one
Sure.
small thing? Because I think I've said this before, but I love Bob Marley. I still love Bob Marley,
Yeah.
but not quite as much as I did in high school. And I think the as far as and again, I might be making this up. I don't know, but the Rastafarians are the only group that their maybe brain capacity or intellectual levels or something like they're the only group where their brain actually increases in some capacity
Yeah.
as far as testing. Everybody else, brain capacity decreases.
Yeah.
So, like, props to the Rastafarians, whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, yeah, drugs are, I mean, weed in particular.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, like drugs are drugs, but
Yeah.
weed, yeah, in general, not great.
So, and for my own personal kind of experience with it is it was something that I was using as kind of like a distraction to basically put me in a euphoric state to never be able to take accountability and
Yeah,
responsibility for the life that
yeah,
I want to live,
it's
right?
an avoidant tactic.
Exactly, right? And so I was like, okay, one, this is not helping my brain, and two, if I am going to be making the decisions that I want to in my life, I got to have a clear head. And so in that decision to do all that stuff, right? Yesterday, I was feeling the pull to try and do one of those things. I was like, man, I'm bummed. Like I just can't I can put my finger on it, but I'm like, fuck man, I don't feel good. In like a mental health sense. So I was like, it would be really nice to smoke a little bit of weed and relax. But I was like, no, this is like an avoidance of the emotions you're having. Like you need to take accountability for it and do the responsible thing. And so I went for a run. And after the run, I was like, okay, I feel a little bit better. And then I had work last night. And part of being in this negative mental state and in the past is that it causes me to be like, okay, call in sick. Don't go to work. You're anxious. You're not in a good headspace right now. You shouldn't go into work. That's
Oh,
what the normal kind of thought goes in my brain. I was like, no, you should go to work because it's going to get you out of the house. It's going to get you into social interaction. You're going to be doing stuff. Your brain is going to be occupied. This is going to be positive for you, right? It might be a little stressful and you're going to be anxious going into it. Like, of course, I get to work and I use the bathroom twice, like out the gate. And I'm like, Jesus, come on, man, lock in. But then I got into work and then after I felt better. And it's just being aware of how my brain is trying to sabotage myself when I'm in the negative kind of mindset, right? It's kind of like I think of it like this gauge, right? You know, you have like empty and full, like you have a gas. And once I get to a kind of a halfway point, everything my brain is telling me to do naturally is like just puts me deeper and deeper into empty. But when I'm in a positive mindset, I'm like being active, I'm being social, everything pushes me to get more full. And
hmm.
so it's kind of like you're teetering that line and it takes real hard work to be like, all right, I got to do the things that's going to get me more towards the positive mindset so that way I can propel myself into a positive way, right?
Yeah,
Like when I first started working at the car sales place, I was starting to make some good money. So I worked out every single day. And
mm,
overall, my mental health was through the roof. I
yeah,
was making more of the videos for the podcast. That's when we made all the clips. I was in a real good mental state.
yeah.
I've had 2 weeks. I haven't made a single clip
Oh,
because I was really negative. Now, I'm sorry, audience. I'm sorry, Highland. I need to take better responsibility and really work on this thing. And that's another reason why I was like, Highland's got to come this weekend. Like, I've been two in my head, two in my house, just like contemplating on what I should do with my life in terms of career and the journey forward. So, long story short, that's kind of where I'm at.
okay. Good check-in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that was awesome.
but in the check-in, it's been really cool just to kind of like open my eyes to like, okay, this is how my brain works. For me, when I'm in a negative headspace versus a positive headspace, and what can cause me to get into something more. And, what really helps me in terms of the blindfold and taking accountability is just like writing down all of my thoughts. For other people, it might work differently. They might have different ways of kind of articulating it, but I just didn't feel like I could, because sometimes I write so much, I have so many thoughts that to actually talk to someone about it, it's like I'm just flooding them with information, right? And
Yeah.
so what helps me is like I write out everything. Like I wrote out like I don't know, it might have been like 6 pages just for like one day.
Oh
But
man.
then when I talk to someone, I can actually articulate well and I can hit on the main points, right? I don't need to hit on all the extra fluff, if you will.
Well, I think that's I mean, if you look into the kind of the studies, the science of journaling, that's one of the main beneficial aspects is it allows you to kind of get rid of everything that's going on and allows you to really focus down you're trying like when you're doing a stream of consciousness
Yeah.
something like that you're purposefully like almost like a meditative state focusing on what's going on in your brain to try and get it down on the paper. So one, it not only allows you to get rid of all the stuff that's going on up here,
Yeah.
but it allows you also to have like a physical representation like, oh okay, this is what is important to me. This is
Yeah.
nonsense. This is just associations, whatever. And then like really kind of get down to the essence
Hmm.
of what's going on inside your brain. But yeah, journaling. I mean, again, I just, I just feel like everything that's being said is like, yeah, I just cannot emphasize this enough, the positive benefits. But again, I mean, journaling, and like journaling, meditation, yoga, whatever it
Yeah.
is that allows you to most benefit, please, by all means, do what you need to do. For me, tennis is a great focus because I'm in the moment.
Yeah.
I went mountain biking the other day. It was incredible because you're just, for me, all of these physical activities, like, um, it just takes you out of this over here and
Yeah.
just puts you right here in the moment. Like all I have to do is hit this stupid ball back to the person,
Yeah.
right? And that's what like you're just focused here in the moment. Like so much of our lives for all of us is spent outside of this moment.
Oh,
Whether we're thinking about the past, the present, this, that, whatever.
and I don't know if it's just me and you, but I hope it's not the case for a lot of people, but it seems like it is, right? Because I'm constantly thinking
No, it's
about the
everybody.
future. Okay.
Absolutely.
I just
No,
wanna
so many.
make
I
sure.
mean, that's what I mean. That's why there's so much focus on meditation and
Yeah.
being present and active listening and yoga and journaling. All of these things are trying to bring people back into the present moment,
No.
right? And it's multi-billion-dollar industry, right? Like you, if you have a tactic that allows people to get outside of this and back into right here, right now, because in the end, this is all we got. Like that stuff's gone. This stuff
Yeah.
may never happen. Whatever. This is all you got right here, right now. Make the most of it. And so many people are trying to figure out the best ways to capitalize on that. But yeah, I mean, it's a huge industry because it is important, right? And because so many of us are not there.
Yeah.
Like we spend the majority, a huge majority of our time outside of the present.
Right.
And spent like when you are outside of the present, life is passing you by in a way that's not really beneficial to you. You're not being productive, you're not moving forward. You're just letting these moments pass by without benefiting yourself in the most positive manner.
And you're just not realizing in the moment what is great about it, right? I mean, for me personally, like I'm so focused on like for instance, my brothers both came home the past 2 weekends and it was great to see them. But the unfortunate thing was is I was so in my head still thinking about what I should do with the future because both my brothers are in happy relationships. They're on great pathways in their career. I am in both those categories not doing great. And so being around them, it's awesome and I'm super happy for them. But I can't help but compare myself to them and feel the negative thoughts of like, what the fuck are you doing, Rowan? Like the biggest thing in my head was like, you know what, Thanksgiving you're gonna be the single guy while both because it used to be Emmett. Emmett was always the single guy at Thanksgiving, and I always had my girlfriend and all this stuff, and now it's changing. And so I wasn't able to be as present as I'd like to be. And I was really upset about it afterwards because I was like, it's like they were here and then like gone.
Yeah.
It was just this kind of like super fast, moment in time. And it's like now I'm still thinking about all the crap I got to figure out. And it's just like not being present really, I think, affects how people see you, how you see the interactions you have with others. And like you can't really pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's the essence. Like the moments pass without any recognition
Yeah.
of the actual moment itself.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what the heck? Like
Yeah.
I didn't pay attention to anything that was going on, and
Yeah.
now it's past, and now I don't. You, like all the time when I'm talking to students is like you, like they're worried about going to class or going to take a test
Yeah.
or going to gym class or whatever it is that's causing them some sort of thoughts or anxiety, and it's like, and not many students are able to grasp this at that age, but
Mhm.
you never get this moment again. This moment never comes again. Like this is a really really big deal, and I think I've only begun to grasp that, as I've gotten to the age that I'm at now, and there's some sort of like looming like shadow in the distance, like the moments are going to end, buddy.
Yeah.
At some
Right.
point, the moments don't come anymore.
Yeah.
Like take advantage of these moments, and it's a really really important concept, but one that's so hard to really like understand on a deep level and kind of implement into our lives. But man, if we can get there, it changes everything,
Yeah.
right? Like if you can look like, yeah, man, I get to go take a test right now. Like I never get this chance again,
Yeah.
right? Like yeah, I can take it on Tuesday or whatever, but I never get this exact same moment again.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Like dang, man, like life's given me this opportunity to go take a test. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Students are
Yeah.
like, "You're crazy, man. Like, what's wrong with you?"
Alright.
But
We gotta switch over. Okay. Sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off.
oh, no worries.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm doing a lot of reflecting and whatnot. And this idea of being present, I have really not been. I've been so in my head. And so, I've realized a lot of these things about when I get into this negative headspace. But the problem I still have is like, how do we get to being present? Like, how do we get out of our brain? Is
Yeah,
it
that's what all the billion-dollar industries are about,
Yeah,
right? Is well, one, I
in
think,
the in a positive way? Because I know how to do it negatively. I could smoke some weed. I could watch porn. I could look at social media. I could just drink myself away. Like there's a lot of great negative ways to get out of my head, but I want to find the best way to positively do it. So that way, I'm living a healthier lifestyle. My brain is in a better capacity to make, critical decisions and so that I can, build the best future for myself.
well, okay, let's just take a moment and focus on the language that you just used.
Okay.
You said that there's lots of ways for me to be present, by getting out of my head, and it's like, huh. Right? You said like there's lots of negative ways for
Yeah.
me to be present by getting
By
out of
getting
my
out of
head,
my head.
by smoking weed, by drinking.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem, right? We think like, oh, if we smoke some weed, if we um drink, if we use pornography, video games, whatever it is, there is a sense that yeah, you do kind of become more involved in the moment, more attached to what's going on.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think there's I mean there's a huge avoidant um, you know aspect of those actions, and I mean for me, like I've used every single one of those, and like I've gotten to the point where I've kind of disregarded a lot of them because I realized that it it doesn't allow me to focus on what I need to focus. It
Yeah.
does just allow me to kind of delay by being present in that moment, but
Yeah.
not focusing on the things that I actually need to focus on. So I think in a lot of ways, and I think there's a lot of people that are much more brilliant than I am and that could speak much more eloquently on this. But really, the first step is to begin to try to realize how much of your life you are outside of the present moment.
Mhm.
And for me, actually, uh I do something that's really, really helpful to me. And like this is an exercise that I'm actually gonna ask the tennis player to do. But just like at certain times in your life, try to count to 20, try to count to 50, try to count to 100, and like try to count to 20 first,
Mhm.
and see how many times it actually takes for you to physically, like in your brain, count to 20. It's amazing. You will not get there. Like
Yeah.
myself. Maybe you will, maybe
You
other
mean
people.
with, like, out thoughts of other
Yeah,
things coming in?
like
Yeah.
without getting distracted,
Yeah.
right? Without your brain taking you to another
Yeah.
thing, like listening to music, or like, oh, there's that something on YouTube, or
Yeah.
like thinking about what happened. And that's one tactic where I realize like how scattered my brain is.
Yeah.
Like, if I can't get to 20, I'm like, ooh, Highland, you need to get to you need to kind of bring yourself back.
Yeah.
So that's just one tactic that I use. And then two, for me, like I'm pretty like tactile. Like I like for me, like touching and like textures and like feelings are really important.
Mhm.
And so like being alone, I really I like at certain moments, like in the sauna or whatever, like I like to, and this is gonna sound so weird, but whatever. I mean, but like just paying attention to like I like feeling like the way that the sweat kind
Yeah.
of like travels. Like I like oh like focus on one little
Yeah.
bead of sweat and just like see how it goes down my face and drips off my chin and whatever. But just stuff like that, like just practice. And I mean that's meditation. It's just practicing being in the moment. And in order to give you some tips and tricks and methods for you to get there outside of the states when you're in meditation,
Yeah.
outside of the states when you're journaling, whatever it is. And really, it's just like those are saying, okay, here's the way that you get here. Now you have to implement this on a larger scale.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and these are things that speaking as somebody that's at my age, it's taken a long time to get here, and by no means am I um perfect at it or whatever. But at the same time, I think I do the work that I do and everything is because like working with kids kind of forces me to be right
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
in that moment. And I love that.
Yeah.
Like I really like if I'm scatterbrained and I'm thinking about all sorts of other things, and there's a kid in my office like just crying or raging or
Yeah.
whatever it is, and I'm just like, oh, I wonder what I'm gonna have for dinner or whatever.
Yeah.
Doesn't work, right?
Right.
It's not like you got to be present and
Well, that's part of the what I was saying with, like, having social interaction and having, like, work and things to do, like, I've been at home for 2 weeks, all I can do is ruminate
yeah,
on all the crap in my life,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
and it's just a spiral,
yeah,
like, at first you start, you're like, "Okay, I'm just being mindful of what everything's going on in my life," and then each day it kinda passes, you're like, "Hey, you haven't really done much," like,
yeah,
"Meh," and then you're just in the hole.
yeah. No, I mean your brain, like I cannot stress this enough, but your brain is pre-programmed to look for the negative things, right? To look for like, hey buddy, you're not doing what you need to do. Hey buddy, you're
Yeah.
letting this opportunity pass. Hey man, you haven't worked for a whole week. Like, hey,
No.
like it's purposely looking for things that are kind of dangerous to you, that are threats to you. And
Yeah.
so like that's the natural state of your brain. And so I think and I'm just figuring this out as we're talking, so maybe I'm just talking nonsense. Like
Ah,
somebody,
that's half of this podcast
some
is figuring out something while we're talking
like
about it.
neuroscientists is gonna be like, these two, come on, man. But like I think a lot of it's just like allowing, um, like like being conscientiously directive to your brain. Like I'm gonna focus on
Yeah.
this right now. Like like have you ever heard like the monks that just spend hours just looking at a penny or looking at a rock or
Um,
looking at a blade of grass,
yeah, to some degree. I
right?
heard a big thing. So I part of this, right? I've really been struggling. So I've been trying to read a lot, and I was reading for some time, so I was really interested in it. But now I've been struggling like so hard to read. I'll be reading something and then I'm just thinking about something in my brain. I'm thinking about what I'm reading and like enacting it in my life. And I'm like, hey, dude, get out of your freaking head. You're not reading anything. You're just daydreaming while looking at a page. And it doesn't seem um, like it's really helping me in any way, right? Like my attention is just getting distracted and everything. And so I've been trying to do more research because I want to get into meditation. And a big thing is like just looking at a candle,
Yeah,
is like focusing on the flame. And I think that's why when we go out and we have like our bonfires,
yeah,
it's really meditative because we're just like, there are moments where me and Howard are just silent for like 5 minutes, just like staring at the fire. Uh,
yeah.
but sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
The monks that stare at a penny.
no, but no. That's all I have to say about that. But I mean, I just think it's so it's so beneficial, but it's also so hard, and it
Oh
takes
yeah.
practice. Like,
Yeah,
and
I mean, most of
that's why
those monks have
there's
been practicing for years, decades, whatever it may be,
yeah,
to reach this kind of state of enlightenment.
yeah, and but it's worth the time.
Yeah,
It's worth the effort,
yeah,
right? Like I think a lot of the the discontent, the kind of maladaptive behaviors, the things that we're seeing in society today is just because people are so anxious and worried and focused on things that have happened or like that might happen or whatever it is, and they're not like one of the interesting things that I've learned recently is when people experience trauma, especially when people experience trauma at a young age, they become stuck in that moment. They're reliving that moment, their whole life, and they never get a chance to actually be present in this moment. And one of the things that's really beneficial in working with people with trauma is just allowing them to come back into their bodies. Like,
yeah,
what is your heart rate doing? Like, that's the whole focus on breathing. Like, what is your focus on? Like, there's one thing that I did, like Dr. Andrew Huberman, like props to that guy. I can't get enough of that guy either.
yeah.
There's a few people that I'm just like, are my heroes, man. But Andrew Huberman, that guy he's one of my heroes for sure. But he has a concept called uh, non-sleep deep rest, or yeah, NSDR or something like that. But it's basically where it's just a 10-minute, 20-minute kind of meditation, but you're just laying down and it just allows your body to go into this deep state of relaxation. But it's just basically focusing on what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Like what's going on inside your body, like what's happening at the tips of your fingers, what's happening at the tips of your toes, like how, like what's going on, and it's all about being present in the moment, like what's happening right now. And it's so, so important. And I feel like I've been all over the place here. Like, I'm sorry I haven't been
No, no,
focused,
I
but
think I think we've gone down a straight line from point A to point B. I don't think we've
well,
been.
I'm just super excited. For me, this is so important.
Yeah.
Like, especially, um, like because I'm really, really interested. Like, my main focus, like where I want to kind of move towards, is working with kids with trauma,
Oh,
which I think that's every single kid out there, I
yeah.
think, has experienced some sort of trauma in some way. But just allowing them to like deal with it and move forward, and like in a way, you just kind of have to get to a point where you accept that the event happened,
Yeah.
and you allow the event to like EMDR, all of these different approaches kind of have the same approach where you get to a point and you say, okay, this event happened, and you kind of experience the event again in a safe environment and say, oh, okay, it did happen. It's in the past.
When you say experience it again, is that by like talking about what happened
Yeah,
or
it can be talk therapy. It can be like EMDR is eye movement desensitization
response, maybe?
response, reaction, something. I don't know. Again, I'm by no means, I don't want to pretend to be a expert in any of this, but um, yeah, it can be through, different, like it can be all sorts of different therapies, right? There's all sorts of different approaches to dealing with this, but in a way, it's just allowing the to experience the feelings in a safe way where you can let them go, where they're no longer a threat.
Mm,
Because what happens with trauma, as the way that I understand it, is that you're constantly in that fight or flight or freeze mode, and you never realize that it's over.
mm.
It's constantly there. Every day you wake up, you have that fear. You have that same feeling.
Yeah. I
You're
heard
in that same state.
I heard on one of the podcasts, again, like Highland said, not an expert, don't really know what I'm talking about. But what I heard one of the doctors say is that when someone goes through a traumatic experience, their brain actually tries to prepare for them for it to happen again.
Again and again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast or not, but I did participate in a trauma study in the accident. Like I was in an accident and we went off the road and we dropped down like a
Yep.
25-foot cliff, and we did the trauma study, and she was like, Highland, you're good. Like you don't have any real responses. And I just, for me, like in thinking about that, I could just let it go because I got to the point. Oh, we did talk
Yep.
about this.
Cool story, bro.
Cool story, bro. But it was just like I'm safe. I'm good.
Well, what's funny is
It's in the past.
I
It's
was
done.
listening to a podcast and they were talking specifically about trauma and the way that people kind of respond to it. And then the thoughts of you in that situation, that story popped into play because you said something specifically about the response. And I can't remember the exact words, but I was like, oh, that's like how Highland responded. And he doesn't think of it in a traumatic way, where it was a traumatic event. It can be viewed as a traumatic event, but in your brain, it doesn't have the effect of a traumatic event.
Yeah,
Probably because how you process it
how you
or
perceive it, like
yeah.
how you perceive the situation. Like if if every time I get into a car, I'm worried about going off a cliff
Yeah.
and flipping upside down and having the same thing happen again, then you're going to experience
Trauma.
negative effects,
Yeah.
right? That's going to be traumatizing. But now I get into a car and I'm like, oh, okay, let's go for a ride. And there's no real. I mean, there is a sense like I did go down that same road and I did see the place where it did happen. And as we came around that corner, there was
A
a
little.
quickening of the heart rate.
Yeah.
There was a physical response and a mental response. And I was like, ooh, okay, so it's still there.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like it's not gone. It's not like, oh, Highland dealt with it.
Ah,
All
whatever.
good.
This
No
turn, we're good.
worries.
Yeah.
So there is like the body does remember. Like what my favorite book in the world, and this is another hero. Like I cannot get enough of this guy. But I hope I say this name right. But Bessel van der Kolk. He
Okay.
wrote man, one of the most brilliant people. I wish I could talk to that guy. Like that guy is amazing. But he wrote the book The Body Keeps the Score.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's like a lot of the references that I make in regards to trauma and the brain and how things are processed and things like that are from him. So like a lot of appreciation and props to him and that book. That's an incredible book. Like
Yeah.
if you have any interest in kind of healing yourself or just knowing yourself, again, cannot recommend that book enough.
Awesome. Well, I think for the first episode, I think that's it. We're at time. So, any parting words, thoughts, or
Oh
anything?
man, I have so many right now. I'm gonna stop right
save it
there.
for the next one. Well, gang, we appreciate you watching and listening. You can check us out anywhere social. Well, so we kind of. I've hold on. I have gotten off social
Rewind.
media. So yeah, we're going to talk about another episode. I'm thinking about starting a social media page specifically for the podcast because I'm thinking about deleting all of my social media because
Oh,
I don't think it's positive. We'll get into it in another episode.
okay.
So there might be a specific social media page for Nopes and Opes where we'll post clips and everything, and it will only be talking about what we talk about on the podcast. It will serve no other purpose than just sharing the message and the things and the
Oh
funny moments
man.
that we have from the podcast, right?
Wow.
Because I was getting misconstrued with like my social media and all this. It's nonsense. So for now, you can check us out on YouTube and Spotify, Nopes and Opes. The book is still available in the podcast description, as well as a link to our website, which has Highland's artwork, which is he's. Are you working on more stuff or what?
Oh, I did, well, I think some incredible paintings the other day.
Yeah.
I love them. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So Highland might be uploading some new artwork that you
Yeah.
guys can purchase if you'd like. But ultimately, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you guys. Oh, wait. One more thing. It's been a while since I've done this. You can reach out to us at the email
Oh,
at
God.
NopeOpePod@gmail.com. Trust me, we always read the emails. So if you ever want to reach out to us, please do so. It is much appreciated. And with that being said, we'll see you guys in the next one.